I've been living with the GWM ORA 03, the car formerly known as the ORA Funky Cat now, for 3 months. It's got delivered to me at the end of October 2024, and it goes back to ORA at the end of January 2025. As of recording, it is now mid-January. Now this video isn't going to be a typical car review video. I've actually reviewed the ORA 03 pretty recently, and there's a link in the top right corner or the description down below if you want to check that out. That's more of a standard car review and explaining all the different features on the car. Now, I've actually had the ORA 03 for 3 months, and 3 months to spend with a brand new car is actually quite a big chunk of time. Now, most car reviews you see on my channel, the Interface Cars, or other channels on YouTube, the car has only been with the person for a relatively short amount of time, really. It could be a day, if it's a brand new car, and you sort of got first impressions of that car, or it could be an entire week. Now, an entire week does sound like a long time, but that week disappears very quickly. And a week with a brand new car is a bit tricky to get a sort of sense of whether or not it's good or not. You can get a really good idea of whether or not it is good or not, but there are certain things which a longer term experience sort of crops up. So for example, with the ORA 03, I've discovered that this doesn't work on Tesla V3 chargers, so the old style ones. It works happily on V4 chargers, which I'll get to a bit later. But there are certain things which just will crop up over a longer term relationship with a car. And it's been really good to spend a good chunk of time with the ORA 03. Now for the design, I've covered this in relative detail in my main review. There's a link in the description down below. However, one thing I've noticed over the last 3 months and all the 1,000 miles I've covered is that this attracts a lot of attention. Now, if you're driving along, you look in the mirror behind you, the people walking on the pavement beside you will just do a double take and sort of nearly break their neck to sort of check out what this is. I would admit, on the front, it does look quite distinctive, and on the back as well, it also looks quite unique because of the placement of the rear lights. Now, the only problem with the exterior design of the ORA 03 is the back window. This doesn't have a rear wiper, and in winter, it collects a lot of dirt. If you drive around for an hour maybe, or just less than an hour, the amount of dirt which collects on this back bit here, but also the window, is quite bad. Because you haven't got a rear wiper, so you can't remove the dirt and spray it with the soap, but also it is quite dangerous because you can't see behind you. Add that also with the lack of height on the window, so it hasn't got enough height here, and if someone's sat in the middle, you can't really see out that well. Now, part of the reason for its lack of height is this big black section here. This is where the sort of signature LED light bar lives, which looks fantastic. I really, really love it, but it has obstructed a lot of the view out the back. So if ORA ever refresh the ORA 03, please add a back window wiper. It would be absolutely great. Now, before we go any further, I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the Interface Cars YouTube channel. There's loads of content coming on a regular basis, all car related, such as new car reviews, infotainment walkthroughs, and electric car charging guides. Thank you. The car's odometer is currently on 5,746 miles, and in the 3 months since I've had the car, I've done, if I scroll down to trip B, 3,702.4 miles, with an average speed of 35 miles per hour. I think that tells you more about UK roads than anything else. Now, it says here the driving time is just under 8 hours. Now, I remember seeing this the other day on about 95 hours of driving. So what I think has happened is that once this thing hits 100 hours of driving, it just circles back on 0 again, which is a little bit strange. I would have thought that would keep going, really. I reckon about 100 and something hours of driving in those 3 months too, which is about right, really. For the efficiency side of things, it's basically 50%. So it looks to me like it's in the middle between worst and best on a little graph thing. And it says 323 watt hours per mile. Now there's a website which I use to convert watt hours per mile to miles per kilowatt hour. Now 323 watt hours per mile is 3.1 miles per kilowatt hour. And that really isn't too bad. Now, obviously there are other electric cars like Tesla and sort of the cars from Kia and that will get 4 miles per kilowatt hour, no problem. But the important thing to remember is that this is advertised as a city car. It also, I've done loads and loads of miles on it, but also it doesn't have a heat pump. Now, I really wish it did have a heat pump, but I can understand why they didn't really add one. The conditions I've been driving this in, sort of really heavy snow, really cold temperatures actually, down -2. I took this to Ireland the other week, and it snowed absolutely loads, and it was getting down to -3 at some point. So considering the temperatures at which I've been driving this in, and that is an average over the last nearly 4,000 miles. So that's a really big mix of roads. It can be city stuff, motorway use, just loads and loads of different scenarios. So 3.1 miles per kilowatt hour isn't too bad really. So that's been pretty good. Now the range is also something I want to address as well. This one is the ORA 03 Pro Plus, so it has the larger 62 kilowatt hour battery pack. And that in theory should mean 260 miles for the entire charge, WLTP. I've never seen 260 miles, and I don't think you ever would really. However, when I got it in November, it was showing 225 miles if you got a fully charged battery, and that was in a bit warmer temperatures. In early January, and sort of the colder temperatures we've been having this month, it's been showing 170 miles at the lowest it would ever be for 100%, and it's been getting that. The range this car shows is actually what you'll get. It's been really, really honest with itself, really. So if you put in a destination on the sat-nav, take a mental note of what the range was, how many miles you've done, you'll end up with around the same amount of range, give or take 1 or 2 miles. And I think that's really impressive. The range may be dropping quite a lot on here, but it is at least honest with you. So it's not going to leave you stranded. You're not going to have more range or less range than you thought you were going to have. It's actually been quite good. So I'm quite happy with that. Now for the infotainment of the ORA 03, I think things have definitely improved since my initial review of the ORA Funky Cat in 2023. The software really hasn't changed loads in terms of the look and feel, and we've got various things that are kind of the same really. But we do now have wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, and that can also be used wired as well. I have had a few issues with the Apple CarPlay system. So shortly into my trip into Ireland a few weeks ago, it just stopped working wirelessly. You could reconnect it using the button down here. You click on here and click on connect, and it would connect it for a period amount of time, or it will just lock up, completely freeze, or turn the entire screen black. What you'd have to do is click on the climate to bring up this menu, and then just completely sort of bypass it completely. However, just using it wired seemed to work and seemed to do the trick as well. That might have been related to changing the car between miles and kilometres, because when I went to Ireland, obviously they used kilometres. But I don't think that is related because it still did it after I got back as well. Also, when using Apple CarPlay wired or wireless, the car is somehow telling the phone where it should be and overriding the GPS on the phone. For example, driving around in the UK and also Ireland as well, for the first few minutes of getting directions somewhere, just puts you in Cambridge or the middle of the North Atlantic Sea. It is so bizarre, and I'm not alone on this. Other people on the Aura EV forums, which I'll put a link to in the description, they've also reported this issue as well, and officially from Aura UK, they've said they're aware of the issue and it should be fixed at some point. They're just trying to work through the bugs. That's a little bit annoying, and it's really weird. Also, the climate controls are completely hidden away from view when using Apple CarPlay. So I'm not going to connect Apple CarPlay because my phone's recording some of the video. But let's imagine this is Apple CarPlay, for example. You can't get to the climate stuff. So what you do have to do, you have to come back out of CarPlay and then click on this button here, and there's your climate, or you just double tap this button down here and it brings up the climate screen. And then you can do what you want to do, and then eventually go back to CarPlay and that sort of stuff. A little bit backward. It would have been quite nice to have some shortcut buttons for the climate down here, some temperature toggles. These toggles look really nice, but again, it would have been nice to have some physical buttons for those as well. However, there is a voice assistant which you can use to help you out with certain things, such as, "Hello, Aura.
Yes, I'm here.
Turn on the driver's heated seat."
Got it. I'll turn on.
And that works really well. It's quite impressive. "Hello, Aura.
Yes, I'm here.
Turn off the driver's heated seat."
Got it.
And also the DAB radio has got really weak signal, especially when compared to other cars. However, the online radio service works surprisingly well. And that's this app here, Radio Online, or Radio Line actually. And you can get access to various things such as sort of Smooth Radio, all the latest BBC stuff. And if you are in other countries, you can get access to all the local radio stations if you want to get access to those as well. A little bit disappointing with the radio system, but that is kind of what it is. And that's the infotainment system. I've also got a full in-depth guide on the infotainment system for the Aura 03. There's a link in the top right corner or the description down below if you want to check that out. Now the charging socket itself is on the left-hand side of the vehicle, located at the front. Now the door here doesn't seem to quite fit properly. I don't know if you can see that. just a little bit loose, not quite sitting flush. And this does let some moisture and water in. Obviously it's all fine, but it does have a little bit of water in there sometimes. Now this one does have a CCS2 socket, and we have got AC and DC on here. So AC at the top, that's for your destination charging, home charging and sort of hotel charging, that sort of good stuff. And then removing this DC section enables the full CCS2 socket, and that's for motorway service charging, rapid charging and that sort of good stuff really. Now 11 kilowatt is the max for AC charging. It would have been quite nice to see 22 kilowatt AC for more faster destination charging, but more EVs are starting to have that, so it's only a matter of time really. Now, I have noticed some issues with charging this on some public chargers. Now, namely, it doesn't charge that fast. Now, as I mentioned, it does do 64 kilowatt, but I've never seen that. It depends on the weather, so 50 kilowatt or less maybe. When it gets to 70%, that sort of high level state of charge, it does sort of 34 kilowatt, that sort of rate really. It doesn't work on Tesla V3 chargers, so the old style with the hole in the middle. Obviously the ones that are open to everyone, I've still tried it and it doesn't seem to work. What happens is you plug the charger in, start it on your phone, and what it will do is just loop around and fail. And then to remove the socket out of the charger, you then got to pull the emergency cord in the bonnet to release it, and then you're on your way. It just doesn't seem to work. However, thankfully, the Tesla V4 chargers do work with absolutely no issue, just works really, really well. Now, an important question is, how has the interior held up over time? It might be all well and good having an interior that looks really nice, but it's more important having something that isn't going to fall apart. Now, I'm happy to report that everything has stayed intact on the interior of the Aura 03. What's quite surprising is that some other Chinese cars, their interiors in the past have been one of the sore points. They may be quite well priced and have good specs, but the interior is something they seem to lack on. However, the Aura 03, I think they really pride themselves on having a really high quality interior, and having spent 3 months in this and hundreds of hours behind the wheel, I can definitely attest to that. Now also, the seats are super comfortable. They're really, really supportive, really soft and comfy on long journeys, and these ones on the Pro Plus model do have support for heating, cooling and massaging. I haven't used the massaging or cooling features, but the heated seats are a nice welcome thing, especially in winter. Now, there's only 2 other issues with the interior, one of which is the cup holders. Now, I like drinking coffee behind the wheel, especially on longer journeys, and the cup holders down here are way too close together and way too small. They have got some nice springy plastic things to hold items in, but they are simply too close together, and it has created quite a few issues when you've got 2 cups side by side that are takeaway cups, the paper ones. What tends to happen is the lids tend to overlap on each other. You pull one drink out and the lid falls off the other one. It's a massive issue. So for a facelifted, updated version of the Aura 03, it would be good to have larger cup holders, but also ones that are slightly further apart would be quite good. One other thing is the wireless phone charger. It is located down here and it does work really well. I haven't had it not charge a phone, but it does tend to charge a phone a bit slowly than other cars. I've been on a long journey using wireless Apple CarPlay. I've had the phone on charge and the phone has been slowly losing charge to, at one point, it completely died altogether. So I don't think it's charging phones that quickly, especially, as I said, compared to other vehicles I've tested recently. Now, what I've noticed over the past 3 months of driving the Aura 03 in the UK is how well this handles quite the shoddy roads we have in the UK. While it does not understand B roads in terms of a lane assist sort of regard, it does really soak up the bumps and potholes quite well, and that means on longer journeys it is quite a comfy and relaxing car to drive too. Also, on a recent road trip to Ireland, I was in the middle of a snowstorm, and this handled the snow really well, which quite surprised me. Now, at slower speed, when you're pulling out of junctions, this car does have a tendency to light up its front tyres and cause some wheel spin, but on snow it didn't really have that problem. And also the range as well didn't have any problems at all at -2 in the snow too. 0 to 60 is not something the company has been loudly boasting about, but it is rated at 8.5 seconds. So if you completely mash the throttle, it does pick up speed very quickly actually. And then now gives me a good time to mention the regen. The regen on the Aura 03 is pretty good. There is an e-pedal mode which you do have to enable in the software, and every time I've got in the car over the past few months, if the car is not fully charged, I can just enable that, and it gives me a bit more regen performance. So again, if I just accelerate, it picks up speed really quite quickly, and then we do slow down quite rapidly as well. What's quite cool as well is it tells you how many kilowatts you're generating and putting back into the battery. So what I've noticed is it does sometimes get up to 50 kilowatts of regen performance. So if I accelerate again, jeez, it's got 126 kilowatts of power, and then we regen all the way down, there you go, 50 kilowatts. So it's pushing 50 kilowatts of energy back into the batteries for you to use again. Now lastly, as I alluded to, this car does still have the traction issues that the original Funky Cat had, but less so. So pulling out of junctions, it doesn't seem to have as much of the same problem, but that issue still is there, and it can light up the tyres. Now the problem when you do that is, whatever driving mode you're in, as soon as it detects any slip, it puts you back into normal mode and then disables the e-pedal every single time you get any sort of traction issues, which can be a bit of a pain. So after 3 months, 4,000 miles and 100 hours of driving, how have I enjoyed my time with the Aura 03 Pro Plus? Well, generally, my time has been quite enjoyable. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, this charging speed isn't as fast as it should be really, and also the software issues are a little bit annoying sometimes. However, there's a lot to like about this electric car, and I've quite enjoyed my time with it really. Now, there's a few things that I really wish Aura could improve for the next version of the Aura 03. Namely the price. It's too expensive in the UK. When the Funky Cat version was launched a few years ago, it was supposed to be £26,000, give or take. However, this is around £34,000 for the Pro Plus model, and that really is the one you want because it does have the larger battery. The range also is a little bit of an issue sometimes. It has got really decent range, but it does have a limitation because of the lack of a heat pump. The heat pump in EVs really should be a thing that just comes as standard on every single EV. Especially in the UK where the climate is so sort of swingy, and it can be really cold one day, warm the next day, and then in the summer it can be really, really hot. And you've got a really sort of wide spectrum of temperatures, and I think the UK is quite unique to that really. So having a heat pump in an EV is a really, really big must. So things that Aura could improve with software over the coming months. The iOS app needs a lot of work. I haven't tried the Android version. I would imagine it is the same. The app sometimes doesn't work when you ask it to do certain things on the car, like lock the doors, set the temperature. It just fails completely, even if you're in an area with good mobile phone coverage, because obviously it needs the mobile phone service on the car to work as well. The app also can't figure out where the car is, and that sort of ties in with the issue with the sat-nav not knowing, well, we're telling the phone where it thinks it is. So the app can't work out where the car is, even if the sat-nav on the car knows where the car is as well. The rear wiper too, I don't think there's any reason to not have a rear wiper on a new car. So the rear wiper is a massive, massive need for the next version, especially in the winter, as I mentioned earlier, like today, and all the mud on the roads. It's quite a bit of annoyance. And lastly, the safety tech is quite overbearing. You just have to go through a rigmarole. I've basically got muscle memory now to turn off all the different settings before I get in and drive anywhere. However, on the positive side, the things that I've really loved about the car is that the styling is very eye-catching. You're not going to lose it in a car park. And I quite like, especially when it's clean, it looks quite shiny and quite eye-catching, and it seems to attract a lot of attention on the roads too. The interior is really premium. It's a really nice place to spend a journey, much as that is a cliche. It's a really good sense of quality in there. Everything's well laid out, and all the materials they've used are quite nice. There's no real hard plastics. And on long journeys, it's really, really comfortable. I've done quite a few long journeys in it recently, and I haven't got out the vehicle feeling tired, and I haven't felt like I need to have another sit down after I got out of the car, especially in other vehicles. Now, very lastly, would I recommend or buy the Aura 03 Pro Plus, having spent a longer period of time with it? Now, if I was buying this cash for the price this is brand new, £34,000, I would say probably not. There are other options available at a lot less prices with better specs and better hardware. I think as a second-hand purchase or a really, really good lease deal, because there's quite a few of those available, that I think, yes, definitely go and test drive one, definitely consider one, because it is quite a nice car and very unique. If you're into a car that's quite unique, it's definitely something to consider. So having said that, I think it is a good recommendation depending on the price and depending on the circumstance as well. However, that's going to do it for this video. My name's Alex. If you like this sort of content, please consider subscribing to the Interface Cars, and I'll see you again next time.